This video will be focusing on how to use the property settings within Visual Studio. I've just opened up a new project. I've been displayed with a form, and the first thing I want to do is make adjustments to this form. Over on the right hand side where you can see the properties toolbar, you can actually decide what caption you'd like to appear here up in the top left hand corner. So I can change that, the text then, to example, as an example. As you can see then it updates there as well. You can also change the font style and the font size and the font color of whatever it is you might actually be putting onto this form. So for example, a label, a text box, a button, and so on. Now you can leave that if you want to and then adjust them as you bring them on one by one, but I've kind of got a good idea of what I want straight away in terms of the font size and font style. So I'm going to type the font style in, and also the size with the PT at the end as well. And as you can see, the form actually gets a little bit bigger. And if you want to make it smaller, adjust it to a specific size, down here at the bottom then you can actually adjust the size. If you press the plus sign, you can adjust the width and height, or you can just type them using the comma there to adjust it to the size you want. Additionally, I can change the back color of the form itself. I can choose colors from the drop down menu here. You can actually have a look at various different ones. I'm just going to use this as an example for the time being, and well, it didn't actually make much of a difference, so let's use something you can see. There we go, so it's a different color. You can also put images and so on as well, but we'll come to that at a later point in this video. Now I'm going to bring a button in. Now I can either just double click on the button, or I can drag it across and then adjust it to the size I want to be. And going back to what I said earlier about the font size, you'll notice it is Calibri size 12 point, which I intended to be Just like we could change the caption of the form, we can also change the caption or the text of the button, so what's going to appear on it. And we can also name the button. So at this stage it's actually called button 1, but I actually want to call it something like submit button, so we know what it actually is. So in the design element where it says name, I can adjust this to what I want it to be. But you aren't allowed to have any spaces. If you need to have a space, you can use an underscore or a hyphen. And then you'll notice then the name of it changed there. Now that's pretty useful when it comes to actually coding what the button will do. You'll actually then be able to see or refer to it within the code by the name you've associated with it, rather than button 1, button 2, and so on. One other thing about a button as well, which I'd like to do, you don't have to do, where it says cursor default. Now when you hover over that button when the form is or the project is running, it will just appear as normal. I actually like to use the hand, so it actually looks like it's something you can click on. It's something which you tend to see anyway. The next thing, I actually want to change the icon here. I'm not too fussed about these three squares. Now when you actually run your project, across your toolbar, your taskbar I should say, across the bottom of the screen, those three rectangles, colored rectangles will appear to sort of say that this is that window running. But I actually like to kind of personalize this so you can actually make it a bit more viewable. So if I click on the form to get back to the form, and again I can name the form if I wanted to, something more appropriate than just form 1, but in this case I'm just going to keep it as it is. And I just need to remember now where it's going to be. Which focus? Might be something I have to come back to. There we go, icon. It's an easy one to remember. So if I click on icon, the 3 dots obviously is to open up a Windows Explorer. And if I head to where I've got my icon saved. Now this was originally a PNG file, something I've made in a graphics package, a really small graphic, only a number of pixels wide, number of pixels in height. Once I actually made it and saved it, I then had to use an online converter to make it into a .ico or icon file. And if I use that as an example, then you'll see it actually appears there. Now if I run the project, it won't actually do anything, but it's just to show you what will happen when it's up and running. And it's going to be with us in a second. Right, here we go. You can see then that it appears there, example, when I hover over the mouse, or hover over the button, sorry, the cursor changes, and you might not be able to see it on the recording, but across the bottom in the toolbar, it actually shows this icon VB as my icon across the taskbar, so I know, but I've identified it as my own. I'm just going to stop that because I want to show you a couple of other things quickly if I can. I'm just going to bring in a text box, and I can name the text box something appropriate as well. I would suggest you do that, but I'm not going to in this case because I want to show you a couple of other little things. Obviously I can adjust the size of it if I need to. I can decide whether or not something is going to be present in that text box. So for example, the text there, it could be enter name here. And that will appear then when the project is actually running. You can left align that, right align that, change the font style again if you need to. But a couple of things I want to show you of this is password characters and or use system password character here, and I'll show you what that does. Now, if you're using like a username and a password kind of thing, obviously when you're typing in your password like you do when you log on to the system, you will know what the password is, but other people can look over your shoulder to see what characters you're typing in. And to make that happen, you just simply change that to true, and then you'll see that they actually all appear in dots there. Now, this password char or password character, you can actually then decide if you want to have like an asterisk or a sign then to appear in this text box as things that are typed into it. Right, the last thing I want to show you is the tab index. Now, basically this one here, tab index 1, this one say tab index 0 for the button. It's actually in the order we want it to be, and if I just run the project just to show you what happens, and you can see that those characters now have appeared there. It does say enter name here underneath it, but whenever I try to type something in, like a password text box, it kind of hides it for us. Now the tab index, basically, if I press tab on my keyboard, it takes me from one thing to another. Now in this case, this one is tab number 0, tab number 1, but as you make things a little bit more complicated, and you have a number of controls, so list boxes, more buttons, more text boxes, and so on, depending on the order you create them, will depend on the tab ordering, in terms of when you press tab, what it goes to next. Because a lot of people like to use keyboards rather than actual a cursor to navigate on times. So you've just got to make sure that your tab index, 0 is always the first control it will go to when you press tab, and then whatever you want it to go to next would be tab index 1, and then tab index 2, 3, and so on as well.